Good morning, happy Monday. It's Susie from Active Seniors. Thank you for joining us for another exercise class. Just a reminder that this week, in addition to today's class, we'll also have a class on Wednesday, and that'll be on Facebook and YouTube. And then we're also introducing our virtual member subscriptions today, but I'll give you a little bit more information about that at the end. Now, I want to make sure that you've got all the equipment that you need for today's session. So I'll tell you what the equipment is before we go into what we're actually going to be covering today. So you need a wall, you'll need a chair, you'll need a can or a really light hand weight, so I wouldn't recommend higher than 1 to 2 kilograms, a towel, and then a broomstick. So I know that seems like a lot of equipment, but hopefully they're all household items that you should have nice, easy access to. Now, the focus of today's exercise class is going to be on the shoulder, and a little bit more specifically at trying to improve the function of that rotator cuff muscle. A lot of people have probably heard of it because by the time you get to the age of 70, around 40% or more of people have some sort of problem with their rotator cuff. So it's a really common area. I know that in the centre here we often see people with shoulder issues. And so the exercises today are really designed at improving the strength of the shoulder muscles and making sure that the joints around the shoulder are moving as they should. Now, as with all of our exercise programs, please make sure that you only do what's suitable for you. I'll try and talk you through a few different variations on exercises, how to make them harder or how to make them easier. You shouldn't get any pain through the exercises. So if anything is painful, please make sure that you stop. Now with shoulders, they tend to be a little bit clicky. They're one of the clickiest joints in the body. So just make sure that if it is clicking and it's painful, that you stop. If it's clicking and it's a little bit uncomfortable, it's up to you as to whether or not you continue. But I'd recommend erring on the side of caution with this one. Okay, so what we're going to do to start with is we're going to do a couple of mobilization exercises, and that's just aiming to get the middle of the back moving, the shoulder itself moving, and also just into getting the relationship between the neck and the shoulder moving well as well. Okay, so we're going to start with our chair, and we're going to be sitting down and rotating from side to side. Now, I want you to choose a comfortable arm position for you. I would normally do it this way, but I don't want to block the microphone today, so I'm going to do it in this position here. And if you have difficulties reaching here or you have any pain, then I'd recommend that you do the same as what I'm doing. Now, it's really important while we're doing this that we keep the legs as still as possible, because if the legs move as we rotate from side to side, then I'm going to be twisting through my lower back a little bit more, and I want to really focus most of the rotation through that upper back. Now, you might hear a few noises, a few clicks as you're rotating around, and as long as it's not painful, again, that's not a problem. Okay, so we're going to start with 4 to each side. So arms crossed and keeping the legs still and rotating as far as you comfortably can. Now, don't feel as though you need to rotate anywhere near as far as I can. I want you to just do what's comfortable for you. But you should find that after that first repetition, you can get a little bit more movement for that second, third, and fourth repetition, or it should just feel a bit easier to move. So we're going to do one more to each side. Good. Okay, and that's our 4 each side. Now we're going to come back and do that, but we've got 2 more exercises to do before we do so. Now the next one, you're going to need a wall. So I'm going to move my chair out of the way, and I'm going to show you 2 different arm positions, and I want you to just choose the one that's right for you. So the first arm position, if you find it difficult to raise the arms up to the sides or you get any pain, I want you to keep the arms low. Now, you're going to be turning your head to one direction. So I'm leaning my body against the wall, and I'm going to look to the right. And as I do that, I'm going to make sure that my palm is facing forward on that side and towards the wall on the opposite side. And then as I switch position, I'm going to turn my head to the other way, okay? Now, if you're comfortable and you've got reasonable flexibility in your shoulders and you can bring your arms up to around shoulder height or just below without any pain, I want you to try the same thing, but obviously in a higher position. So Looking to the right, I'm going to bring my right thumb up towards the roof, and now my left. Okay, and we're just going to work through 4 of those on each side. So choose the position that's comfortable for you. I'm going to do it in the higher position, because if you can do it that way, you get a little bit more of a stretch through it. Okay, so try and keep the rest of your body against the wall. You don't necessarily have to have your neck against the wall, but you want to have it as close as possible to the wall. We don't want to have our head forward. We want to try and bring it back. Okay, so to the right to begin with. So that's 1. 2, 2 more, 3, and final 1. Great. Now the final exercise in those mobility circuits is going to be just for some of the shoulder muscles that control the position of the shoulder blade. So I'm going to sit side on so that you can see it. You can do it standing or seated. So I'll do the first round seated, and then the second round I'll do standing. And what I want you to imagine is that you've got a clock face and that your shoulder is right in the middle of that clock face. Okay, so up is 12 o'clock. Down is 6 o'clock, and I'm sorry if this is the opposite way for you, but for me, coming forward would be 9 o'clock and going behind would be 3 o'clock, okay? So we're going to move through all of those ranges. I might just say up, down, forward and back because it'll be a little bit easier, but the idea of the clock face is just so that you come back to the middle each time. So you want to go from the middle of the clock up to 12 o'clock, back to the middle, down to 6 o'clock, back to the middle, forward to 9 o'clock, back to the middle, and then back to 3 o'clock. We're going to do 3 of those on each side. So up to begin with towards 12 o'clock, and then back to the middle, down towards 6 o'clock, and then back to the middle, forward towards 3 o'clock, and back to the middle, and then backwards towards 9 o'clock and back to the middle. Okay, so we're going to do that 2 more times. Now what you should notice is that the rest of my arm didn't move. You can rest your arm like so, or you can have it hanging down, whatever feels comfortable for you. But just making sure that as you're doing it, you're not bending the arm to make the movement happen. So I'll keep my arm lower for the next 2. So just letting the arm hang. So up first to the middle, down and back to the middle, forward and back to the middle, and then backwards and back to the middle. And one more time on this side before we change to the other side. So up to begin with, down and then returning to the middle, forward and then back to the middle, and then backwards and back to the middle. We're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm going to change the position that I have on my chair. You can just stay seated obviously and just change to the other arm. So up to begin with, down to begin with, forward and back. And just a reminder, you shouldn't get any pain with any of these. So making sure that you're not pushing into pain. Down, forward, and finally back. And one more, sorry, I almost gave it as an extra one there. So coming up, down, forward, and backwards. Great. So that's round 1. We're going to do a second round before we move on to the strengthening exercises. So we'll start by sitting and doing our rotations. So sitting like so, keep the legs as still as possible. Rotate as far as you comfortably can before coming to the next side. Now you should notice that as I'm doing this movement that my head is following what's happening through the upper body and shoulders. So it's just the legs and the pelvis that are in a different movement pattern. They're trying to stay still. So one more on each side after this one. Okay, so final repetition. Okay, and that's our rotation done. We're going to move to the wall for that next exercise. So remember, I'll just remind you of the two hand positions. So you can either have your hands like so and turning like so, or if you're comfortable, a little bit higher up on the wall. So I'm going to do that variation. We're going to do 4 to each side. So up against the wall, okay, I'm going to start by looking to the right and then looking to the left. Always reminds me of the Bangles song, Walk Like an Egyptian, when I'm doing this exercise for some reason. Okay, and one more on each side. Great. Okay, we've got that one last exercise to do, and that's that scapular clock. So I'm going to do it standing. So standing like so, or sitting if you'd prefer, and supporting the arm on your thighs. You're going to be lifting the shoulder up to begin with, to the middle, down, forward, and back. Okay, so up, down, forward, back, and one last repetition on this side before we move to the other side. Okay, moving to the left side now. So I'm just churning so that you can see it a little bit easier. So up to the middle, down to the middle, forward to the middle, backwards to the middle. Okay, forward, and you notice that I'm trying to keep the rest of my body still. Sometimes it's a little bit challenging because that body wants to come along for the ride with some of the movements. Make it a bit easier for you. But I'm just trying to focus on moving that shoulder blade. So there are mobility exercises. You should feel nice and warm now. The rest of the body should be starting to feel really nice and loose and ready to do some strengthening. Now, we've got 3 circuits to do, and they're going to have 2 exercises. We're going to run through one of the exercises and then repeat them, okay? So, to start with, you're going to need your chair. Now, you might need to use a table depending on how healthy your shoulder is. So, we're going to need our can or our lightweight for this one. Now, I'm going to hold the arm up in this position here. So my arm is not directly to the side, it's slightly in front, so about say 20 centimeters in front of that directly sideways position. And I'm going to try and have a 45-degree angle here. And I'm going to hold the weight in this position here. We're going to hold it for 30 seconds. So I want you to get into position now. Now, if you find that this is too high for you, what you might need to do is you might need to sit next to a table that's a little bit lower and just rest your elbow on the table. And that way it won't put quite as much strain on the shoulder. Okay? So into position, we're going to hold this for 20 seconds. So holding your weight and now, so just holding this, make sure that you keep breathing. For any exercises that you're doing where you do need to hold a position, it's really important that you keep breathing because otherwise your blood pressure can go up quite substantially, okay? So holding just for another 5 seconds and relaxing, okay? So we're going to repeat that on the right side before we move to the left side. So in 5 seconds, we're going to do the same movement again. So use your other hand to pass the can or the weight and holding that position, you're going to hold that for 20 seconds, okay? So you should feel it working through all of those shoulder muscles, just holding this position, but you shouldn't actually experience any pain. So please, if you do experience any pain while you're doing this exercise, make sure that you're stopping. Okay. And that's our 20 seconds again. So we're going to swap the position of the chair. And if you are using a chair, you will need to copy me this time. We're going to get our other shoulder into position. Okay. And ready to go. We're going to start our 20 seconds now. Okay. Now it's important as well that you keep your wrist in line with the rest of your forearm. Okay. So holding this position, the rest of the body is up nice and tall. Making sure that you're continuing to breathe as I mentioned earlier. And we've got another 5 seconds to go. So we're going to just hold this position for another 5 seconds. And then relaxing. Okay, we're going to do that one more time before we move on to our next exercise. And just a reminder, if you find it too challenging to hold for that whole 20 seconds, you just do what you can and then take the pressure off. So, ready to go and holding. And we're going to hold this for that 20 seconds. So again, doing a good job, keep breathing, keep holding. And another 5 seconds to go. Okay, and that's our rotation hold done. The next exercise that we're going to do is what's called a soaring movement with the towel. Okay, so we need our towel for this one. You need a long towel. What I want you to do is I want you to step on one end of the towel. Okay, so right at the end, have the other hand over the top as you're gripping it. And what you're going to be doing is you want to try and pull away. So I'm bringing my wrist and my elbow with a right angle at my elbow up towards the roof. I'm going to hold that position, so I'm pulling up, trying to stretch the towel, and then I'm going to move the arm forward and backwards. And we're going to do 6 of these. Now you'll notice as I'm doing this movement that the right angle in my arm stays consistent. So I'm not pushing forward and pulling back, okay? I'm moving my arm, my whole shoulder in an arc, and I'm focusing on keeping the tension in the towel as I'm doing that exercise. Okay, so one more before we swap to the other side. Good. The exact same movement on the other side. So you're stepping on the end of the towel with the other foot this time. Overhand grip, so all that means is don't hold it from underneath, hold it from over the top. Okay, pulling up to the side with my wrist and my elbow, keeping that right angle, and then moving the shoulder forward and back, keeping the rest of my body nice and still. Okay, so obviously the tension at which you pull at can really influence how difficult this exercise is. So if you're finding that your shoulder muscles are getting tired, just decrease the tension a little bit, don't quite pull as hard. If you're finding it easy, then you're not pulling up enough. You're really trying to rip that towel if you can. Okay, and we'll do one more. I've lost count, it's the active seniors curse. When we're doing these live classes, we talk so much that we forget to count. And we'll move back to our first exercise. Okay, so holding the arm in position, ready to go. We're going to start our 20-second hold in 5 seconds. Okay, so ready and holding. Okay, so make sure you're breathing, sitting up nice and tall. If you need to, remember, use a lower surface like a table rather than trying to keep your arm up at this height if it's painful at all, okay? And we're really trying to keep the wrist in line with the rest of the forearm. Okay, that's our first lot of 20 seconds done. If you need to, you might need to give the arm a little bit of a shake so that those muscles can get a little bit more blood flow before you do your next round. Okay, and ready to go for the final 20 seconds for this exercise for the day before we move to the other side. Okay, so just holding this position. It looks really simple, but when you actually start to try it, you realize that it works a lot of those muscles around the shoulder. It's trying to gently activate the rotator cuff muscles while we're getting some of those bigger shoulder muscles working, called the deltoids. Great. Okay, swapping the chair to the other side. And getting your arm into position, we're ready for our first 20 seconds. So I'll give you another 5 seconds, just in case it took you a little bit longer to get set. And holding in that position there for 20 seconds. Now this exercise is what's called an isometric exercise, and that means that we're developing tension in the muscles without the joints actually moving. So those types of exercises can be really good for areas that are painful. They've been shown to produce reductions in pain after people have done them and during. Okay, that's our first 20 seconds done. We've got one more lot of 20 seconds. Oh, make sure you keep breathing. And hopefully you're starting to feel those shoulders warming up. Okay, And our final lot of 20 seconds starting now. We're just holding that position up nice and tall with the rest of the body, making sure we're not holding our breath at all. We've got another 10 seconds to go. Okay. And we're almost there. And we're there. Okay, we can put our weight to the side now. We won't need it for many of the other exercises. Okay, but we will pick up our towel. And we're going to do that soaring exercise again. So we'll start with our right arm. Okay, so stepping on the towel, overhand grip, so over the top, pulling up to try and stretch the towel, keeping a right angle at the arm and moving forward and back. We're doing 6 of these. Okay, so you just do what's comfortable for you. There shouldn't be any pain. If you find that you need to lower the position of your arm, that's completely fine. You just pull down the towel a little bit lower and you find a position that's comfortable for you. But the same principles apply. So you want to keep that right angle at the arm. You want to still pull up towards the roof with the wrist and the elbow, and you're just moving through that arc. Okay, let's move to the other side. So stepping on the end of the towel with the other leg, over the top, and if you're finding that you're a little bit unsteady balance-wise, just make sure you've got a chair nearby. So pulling up, holding that position of the elbow while you're moving forward and back. Okay, it's very tempting for that arm to try and straighten out and pull back as you're doing the exercise. You want to try and keep that nice and still so that the movement happens from the shoulder rather than the elbow. And one more. Okay, so that's our first circuit done. We've got 2 more circuits to go. So the first exercise that we're going to do in our next circuit, I'm going to give you 2 variations. Well, I'll actually talk you through 3, but I'll show you 2 variations. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving, I'll show you before I bend over. This position here is an A position, okay? So the arms are down by the sides, not quite at the sides, but slightly out. And here is a T position, okay? What we're going to be doing is we're going to be bending over and we're going to be moving in this range, so between the A and the T. Now you might need to bring the arms forward a little bit, like so as you're doing it. You need to find a comfortable position for you with no pain. But we're going to do it in a bent over position, so like so, okay? And the reason that we're bending over is because we want to work the back of the shoulder muscles. If we do it standing up, we're working more the muscles at the top of the shoulders. But as soon as because gravity's pushing down, as soon as we bend over, gravity's now pushing my arm down, so I'm having to work the muscles more at the back of the shoulders, okay? So if you find it's too uncomfortable to do with straight arms, you can do the exact same movement with bent arms, okay? So you're working through the same range. It'll look like I'm moving higher, but I'm actually not. I'm just bending my arms. And if you find that both of those variations are too easy, what I'd encourage you to do is use that hand weight again and work through the shorter bent elbow range with the hand weight. But I'm going to show you the straight arm variation. I'll face the camera, okay? So in this position here, we're going to do 8 repetitions. So arms in the A position, moving to the T position, and you're keeping them up the whole time. Okay, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and one more, 8. I probably look like I'm flying an aeroplane if I was a child. All right, so for the next exercise, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be using the towel again, and we're just going to pull the towel apart. You pull it apart as much as you're comfortable. You want to have the arms so that the elbows are pushed into the rib cage at the start, and that's the width that we want to have the wrists and the elbows in a straight line, okay? So I'm going to pull the towel apart here. I'm going to maintain the tension as I bring the arms up in front. Now you just bring to where you're comfortable. Obviously the higher you go, the more strenuous it's going to be. So if you can get up to here, that's great. I'm only going to go part way up, okay? And we're just going to do 5 of those, okay? So pulling apart, coming up, and then back down, keeping nice posture and pulling the towel apart the whole time. So that's 3, 4, and 1 more, 5. Great. Any of the exercises where we're pulling the towel apart, you should really feel all those shoulder muscles getting a little bit tired towards the end of the number that you're doing. But make sure, no pain. If it's too much for you, just decrease the tension, give yourself a break in between. So pull apart as you're coming up and then relax on the way down. Now we're going to repeat those 2 exercises before we move into our final circuit of 2, okay? So the A to T, just a reminder, we're bending over. If you find that you need to, you can do it in a shorter range. And if you're finding that this is too easy, then add that hand weight to this movement here, okay? With this one, bending forward, keeping the back nice and straight though, so not slumping forward, okay? Now, I'll bend forward here. We're starting in our A position and we're coming up to our T position, okay? We're doing 8 of these, so that's 2. And if you need to take a break at any point in time, please do. 3. And if you're getting any pain in your shoulder, just try a smaller range or a lower range, okay? That's 5. We've got 3 to go. 6, 7, and last one. Good. All right, moving on to that pull apart with the flexion again. Okay, so pulling apart with the towel as much as you comfortably can, keeping that right angle at the elbow and keeping the wrists in line with where the elbow position is, and then just bringing up to where you're comfortable. Okay, we're going to do that 5 times. So that's 2, 3, 4, 1 more to go, and 5. All right, so we only have 1 more circuit to go before we do a little bit of a cool down. Now for our final circuit, you're going to need 2 things. You're going to need that broomstick, and we're going to need a chair or the wall. I'll show you which variation. Now before we get started, for the second exercise, what I want you to try and do for me is just roll up the towel on the end of your broomstick, and it will just add a little bit of extra weight to the broomstick. Okay, so I'm going to leave that over here, ready to go for our second exercise. Our first exercise, we're going to do what are called shoulder taps. Now you can do this either up against a wall, which is the easier variation. We can do it on the chair, which is a little bit harder in some ways. So I'll explain the differences. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to start in this position here and take a step back with each foot. You want to imagine that you've got a glass of water on your back and you don't want the water to spill. As you bring one arm up to touch the other shoulder, and then repeat the same on the other side. So hopefully, if I'm doing this right, you shouldn't see any movement in through my back. So we're really trying to get those trunk muscles working together with the shoulder muscles. Now, you might need to vary the amount of pressure that's going through the hands. So that can be done by coming closer to reduce the pressure. And it might be difficult to tap all the way up. Just aim to touch the other side or to try and touch the opposite elbow, okay? If you're doing it against the wall, it's very similar. But this time, I'm going to have my hands slightly below where my shoulders are. And I'm sorry that I'm facing away from the camera here. So slightly below, step back a little bit, and then tapping the shoulders like so. I'm going to do the chair variation, but as I said, it's usually a little bit easier to do it against the wall as long as you've got the ability to raise your arms up high enough. If you can't raise your arms up comfortably to just below shoulder height, then it's better that you're doing it closer using the chair. So putting a little bit of pressure through the arms and trying to do it this way, okay? I'm going to, as I said, do the chair with a little bit further stand back so that I'm getting a little bit more pressure through my arms. All right, so for that exercise, we're going to do 6 taps on each side, which means we're going to do 12 taps in total, okay? So stepping back, and I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, really focusing on bracing those trunk muscles so that you're not getting movement in the back. And we've just got 2 to go. All right. Now, the exercise to pair up with this circuit is going to be using that broomstick, and we're just going to do a carry exercise. So, all I want you to do is the side that you got the towel on is going to be the opposite to what you're going to be carrying from. You find a position that's comfortable. Obviously, the closer I am to the middle and to this side, the easier it's going to be. I want to challenge my grip because there's a big link between grip strength and shoulder function. So I'm going to move to the other end. I'm going to keep my arm by my side. You have to be a little bit careful with this, obviously, from a space perspective. We don't want to have chariot games in the lounge room or wherever you're exercising. So just make sure if you're doing this with someone else in the room, you've got clear paths marked out, okay? And holding, we're just going to take 4 steps, nice and tall, okay? And turning around while still holding it, and then we're going to transfer to the other side and do the exact same movement. Okay, and I'm going to do that one more time each side before we repeat that first exercise again. So, good. And the final carry before we repeat the first exercise again. Good. Okay, so we'll put that down. We'll come back to it for our next round, but we'll go back to our taps. So just a reminder with the taps, you probably noticed I had my feet a fair way back. You don't need to go anywhere near that. So just a little step back and just focusing on tapping the shoulders, keeping the back still, or doing it against the wall, leaning slightly against the wall and just trying to take the pressure off so that we're shifting the pressure from one side to the other. I'll do it this way just so that you can see the movement nice and easy, okay? So stepping back, okay, and 12 taps all together. So we're 5, 6, halfway. Remember that glass of water on your back. Almost there. One more each side. Great. Okay, I'm going to move my chair out of the way completely so that I don't knock it when we're doing our carry. All right, so getting the broomstick ready, holding it where you feel comfortable. Remember, closer to the load is going to be easier. Further away from the load is going to be harder on those gripping muscles. Okay, so up nice and tall, holding your broomstick, okay, and 4 steps before turning around. Hopefully you've got enough space around you that you can take that 4 steps. If not though, you can just take a step forward and a step back like so and simulate those 4 steps and then turn around. So you do whatever's comfortable and whatever you've got room for, okay? We're going to do 1 more each side. Okay. Carry-based exercises are really excellent exercises to include in your exercise program. And a lot of people don't seem to recognise their benefit, not only for the shoulders, but also for those trunk muscles. Okay, that brings us to the end of today's session. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that it's given you some ideas about how to use some of your household items like a broom to try and improve the strength of the rotator cuff muscles. Okay, so we're just going to finish with some shoulder rolls. Now you should know by now, all of our staff, we love backwards rolls. We don't particularly like shoulder rolls forward quite as much. Okay, so we're going to do some backward rolls to begin with, and then I'm going to show you a nice easy mobilization for the shoulder as well. Okay, so rolling those shoulders back, making some nice big circles and concentrating on getting that breathing back down to normal. All right, a few more circles. Good. And so what we're going to do to finish with, it's not a stretch as such, because for a lot of people, they tend to be a little bit longer in one of the big shoulder and neck muscles called the levator scapulae. So we want to try and get some blood flow to this muscle, but we don't want to try and stretch it too much. It's like stretching a leather belt that's already overstretched, okay? So you won't get a lot of a response from it. What I want you to do is you're going to start by bringing the ear and the shoulder together, so you're actually hitching your shoulder up, and then you're going to move them apart. And you'll notice that as I move them apart, my nose moves down towards my armpit. Okay, so together and apart. And we're going to do that 2 more times. Last one. Okay, and now doing the same on the left hand side. So as I'm going apart as well, I'm not only moving my nose towards my armpit, but I'm dropping my shoulder. Okay, so hitch first and then drop as I move my neck away. And hitch, and you should feel a stretch at the end, but we don't necessarily want to hold that stretch for too long. Okay, one more. Okay, good. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. For those of you that are interested, I'll just quickly explain how our virtual membership works, or what you get access to. So our virtual membership is through our website, and what you'll do when you register is you'll be able to log in via our website. You'll have access to daily exercise classes. So obviously we're only putting 2 up a week at the moment through Facebook and YouTube. Through our website, we'll have them available daily with a chat box like what we have in Facebook, so that you can interact with our staff members and also each other as you're doing the exercise sessions. We also have all of our existing recorded videos that will be available through the website as well, and a few other things like interactive health talks, the ability to ask our staff any questions that might relate to exercises or technique, some competitions, some ebook downloads, and then a few other interviews and articles. So if this is something that you're interested in, come back to our Facebook page today or have a look at our website today, and we'll have further information about how you sign up. It's $5 a week for that basic membership, and hopefully you'll enjoy and get lots of benefit. But I hope you stay safe. Make sure that you keep active, however that is. So we've always got our exercise videos up on Facebook, YouTube, on our website. And if you do want to get that little bit of extra, then paying for that virtual subscription is a good option. But otherwise, have a great day.